So it's...
No, it's just a personal call. I won't be long. Yeah. This is the young lady that's talking about the priesthood. So I thought if you were here, you could lend your wisdom. Anyway, honey, what do we want to talk about? You want to talk about ordination or?
So I am taking a master's class on presenting the faith in the modern world. It's my last class to finish up a theology degree. And one of the topics for the week is women in the priesthood. So we listened to a lecture by Peter Kreeft that said, next to abortion, women in the priesthood is the single most controversial issue in the church today. I think that's maybe debatable, but that's what he said.
I agree.
So I have to do a little interview of someone, anybody, on this topic. So I remember Michelle telling me a little bit about you and your vocation, and I thought maybe it would be a fun person to interview to just kind of talk about it.
All right. Okay.
So I'm gonna, if it's okay, I'm gonna record our conversation. So I can
that's fine. I just want to say, I have been, as you know, been in religious life for over 50 years and in ministry over 50 years. So I've been around the block a few times with priests and clergy and parish and worship. But to form my formal study of any of the sacraments, including orders, is about 20 years old. So I'm not up on the latest, if there is a latest, but I'll be happy to be interviewed and share my wisdom or experience with you.
Fantastic. Wonderful. Now, are you a member of an order?
Yes, I'm a Sister of the Holy Names, and I've been a professed religious since 1963, and finally professed religious since 1968.
Wow. Thank you so much for your service to the church. That is an amazing, amazing vocation. That's incredible.
It's been a gift. It's been a gift and a blessing. Yes, for sure.
How did you discern your vocation? You must have been right out of college.
Yes. No, I was right out of high school, actually. Back in the 60s, that was not uncommon. In fact, most religious women, very few went to college before they entered. We had 4 years of formation when we completed our college studies before going out to teach. So I'm not the generation of religious that went out to teach when they were, 16 years old. We had 4 years of formation before we went out into the classroom. And so then many of us, most of us, or all of us just about, have 1 or 2 master's degrees, and many have doctorate in ministry or PhDs. We're probably, as a group of women in our culture goes, one of the best educated groups around.
Wow. And so is the charism of the order teaching?
Yes, it's education and education in the faith, with a particular care and concern for the poor and the disadvantaged and the undereducated. And but generally, that is the main charism or mission of our order. Always has been since our founding in 1843 or 4. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And can you give me just a brief outline of what you've done in the past 50 years?
Well, I'll be happy to. Well, let's see. I began my career teaching in elementary school here in Washington, D.C., and it was at an African-American school, just a fabulous place to begin a career. I taught for 5 years, and then I was asked to go into educational administration, which I was very young, like 28 when I did that, or 29, I can't recall, but I was principal of a grade school for 5 years, and then I went into parish adult faith formation and began studying. While I was as a principal, I got my degree in educational administration from Catholic University, and then I started studying theology when I went to work in adult faith formation, and I finished that. Took me a while because after 5 years in parish ministry, I did 2 years transition work with the secondary school principal in Silver Spring, actually, Mickey's alma mater and my alma mater. And then I went on to our provincial administration in Albany, New York. And I was involved with community administration for 12 plus years. And then I went to a parish in the south end of Albany and worked with the poor, and did some faith formation parish. We did a lot in those days with enabling the laity for leadership and for teaching and for administering our schools and being on board. So when in the 70s vocations to religious orders declined, many communities, my own especially, set about with the mission of enabling and empowering lay people to carry forward our charism in our schools, hospitals, clinics, orphanages, whatever ministry we were in. And I think over the years have been very successful with that. So we have presidents of our schools who are laymen and women, boards of trustees that are all lay men and women, maybe a couple of sisters on the board. We have teachers, you name it, and our own sisters diversified after we were too old to be in the classroom, and many went into college teaching. Many are, a couple are medical doctors, lawyers, social workers, counselors, and just diversified, but always, always, always with our charism in mind, which was the full development of the human person, and that through education or pastoral care or service, but our focus was always on the individual.
Wow, beautiful. Are you still seeing a decline in vocations?
Well, most vocations for communities, including my own, that are getting vocations, they're mostly in the third world, South America, Africa, India, places like that. This is pretty much where our mission locations is where the vocations are coming. Here in the first world, frankly, you got beautiful women like yourself who's married and children getting a master's degree and extending the faith to the world, and you're going to be fabulous at it. And 50 years ago, it was unheard of that a woman, especially anyone who was not a religious woman, could get into work such as that. So young women in this country, don't need to follow the same path that we did in order to serve the church and the world as you will serve. Now, I want to just modify that slightly, because the charism of religious life itself, living in community under vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience, is itself a charism. And a charism is a gift of God to be given away. So one of the major charisms of the church itself is religious life of both men and women. And, that has everything to do with ministry, but nothing to do with ministry, if you can follow me. Mm-hmm. Is there a decline in religious life, men and women joining religious orders to live in community under vows? Yes. And there are lots of reasons for that, I'm sure, materialism being one, a major one, and just the general tenor of our culture, some of the failures of institutional religion. We have the noni, what do they call them, the nones or the nuns, whatever, that don't want anything to do with institutional religion. These are all the challenges that you're going to face as you get out there and start working in your calling, your mission. So, it's just life goes on, and the Lord works in many wonderful ways. And I personally feel like the expanding and the developing and the flowering is the best word I can think of lay men and women ministry in the church at every level is just the way it should be. We're all called to be disciples. We're all called to serve. We're all baptized, which is the ground and foundation of everything, whether you're a priest or a religious or a married person or a single person. And I think that we're finally getting to where that is what identifies us as disciples and followers of Jesus. And to me, that's the way the Lord has always wanted it to be. This is what we're working toward. So, I don't know, maybe that's too many words.
No, that's fantastic, and thank you for that endorsement. That's really empowering to me as a laywoman, because sometimes you can feel like you're out there on your own, and why am I
And
doing
you know,
this?
and you know what? You will feel that. And when you get into ministry, you will realize that there is a lot of sexism in the church, and there is a lot of brother, that old boys club stuff that goes on, especially among the clergy, which is very frustrating and disappointing to women. And it has always been, and maybe it always will be. I don't know. But religious women have fought it all our lives. And, right now the state of the PR for our clergy and our ordained men is at an all-time low, but hopefully that'll change. I don't know.
Yeah, that was what I was going to ask you next, is if you feel as if you've been treated differently because you're not a man.
In the church, there's just no doubt about the fact that religious women have, we've borne the burden of prophecy in the church, and I feel that is basically the role religious women have always filled and will continue to fill in the church, and lay women as well, because as women, we're more centered on people and relationship and growth and nurturance, and we're not so centered on power and prestige and esteem and all that type of thing, which tends to be more, I guess, not all, but a number of ordained men, but whatever.
Yeah, that's. And, please go ahead.
No, that's fine. Go ahead. What were you going to say, hon?
I was just going to say that's interesting that you brought up that issue of power, and that women are much more relational, just sort of by nature. One thing that I listened to this week is Bishop Robert Barron talking about, he talked about women in the priesthood, and he said that one of the problems he sees with women in the priesthood has to do with the problem of power. And I feel like what he was getting at is that that women who would advocate for women priests are doing it for reasons of power. And, right or wrong, I'm not really for women in the priesthood, but I thought that was sort of narrow-minded to say that the only reason anyone would advocate for it is power.
Right. Well, I don't know of too many really devout, solid women that would advocate in any way to be part of the priesthood as we currently have it in the Roman Catholic Church. I mean, there is nothing about it that would draw dedicated, spiritual, prophetic women into that, because that's not what they're about, it seems. Mm-hmm. And so as far as ordaining women to be part of this institution that we currently have, I would not favor that myself. Now, as far as women as fully redeemed persons with all the rights and privileges of baptism, being eligible for the diaconate or ordination or orders in another world, in another era, in another whatever, perhaps, yes, that would be a very right and just thing to happen. But given the present situation, I don't see it happening, and I don't think it would help anything either. I've been in parish ministry for the last 25 years, and I can tell you, especially my most recent ministry here in Washington, D.C. at Annunciation, the men and women of the parish revere the religious women, and at this point in the church, they are the persons that they totally, completely trust. And we're not there for power or for whatever, although try to knock down a very bright religious woman on something. Often our preaching is better. We're well prepared academically. We have a wider range of ministerial experiences. And you'll be in a situation where you can have all this behind you, and a newly ordained priest will come in who doesn't know whether today's yesterday or tomorrow, and all of a sudden he's ahead of you in the line. And that's not right. That is a total disrespect for the accomplishments, the sanctity, the prophetic place, and the role of women. And so this business of, because they're ordained, they are a different breed, or they're more human, or they're more divine, or they're more anything, is a falsehood. Because Some of them are truly, truly wonderful men, but they are growing just like everyone else is in their faith and in their service and in their identity. And it's a process. It doesn't end when the bishop lays hands on you and says, "Tu es asherdos in aeternum." Fine, but work at it day by day by day, no matter who you are or what sacrament you're drawing from. And that's my opinion.
Yeah, I hear you on that, and that's, I'm sure, as a woman religious, got to be very, very frustrating and demeaning. Bishop Barron did go on to say that true power comes from being a saint, and
this is right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree with him on that, I think that's exactly what you were getting at, is that you've got to work on it day by day by day by day. Just because you're ordained a priest doesn't automatically make you holier than the rest of the people of God.
This is true. And some of these some of the ordained men, I've worked with them at every age, at every phase of formation, development. And I can tell you, there are some truly holy priests that I've known in my life. They are there for the people of God. They are prayerful. They are humble. They are hardworking. And, this is what who a priest should be. But, and some of the younger men are very humble, and some are not. There are some of the newly ordained that we are experiencing now in the church who really, it's questionable that was a good decision for them. Mm-hmm. Because they do think, they tend more to lord it over people than to serve people. And people know it too. You can pick it out pretty quickly if that's the situation. And generally they're not successful, and they're not happy, and they often, withdraw. So where religious women are concerned, I think that we have community to support us. And see, this is such a huge benefit. Even over and above lay women in ministry, we have this community of persons who are totally committed. They wouldn't be sacrificing the things they do and the life they could have for the sake of the gospel and the building up of the kingdom, and for bringing the wisdom of the Lord and the Spirit to the people of God. If they were in it for anything else, it just does not make any sense. Mm-hmm. So in that sense, religious women are noted, and their role in the church, more than being a priest, is the prophetic role. Religious women will be and size up the signs of the time and whatever, and often make statements or live according to a value system that really, would never, which really is not the value system that we often see in dioceses. It's talked about, and it's mouthed, and it's especially talked about when they're looking for more money. But as far as the day-to-day, I don't know. I don't make any judgments, but I think in every instance in the church, recent decades, where you have a very successful Catholic Charities situation, or a moving justice system in the diocese, or you will often find that religious women and lay women have a lot to do with it, even though they are not in charge.
That's wonderful, and I've seen that all over the place. I had the privilege of studying at the Angelicum last year in Rome. We were in Rome for the year, and the Angelicum is, Dominican.
Right, I know. I'm very familiar with it, and I've got several priestly friends who attended there. Mm-hmm.
Well, one thing that I found really interesting and kind of sad is that the vice dean of theology at the Angelicum is a Dominican sister. She's with the Nashville Dominicans. Wonderful, wonderful woman. And really, she keeps the theology program there running. Uh-huh. But the inequality with how she is treated is unbelievable. I've never seen anything like it. All the priests are given housing right there at the Angelicum. They have a place for all the priests to stay. Even some of the visiting priests that are studying there can stay there. My friend, who is the vice dean, had to find her own housing in Rome from year to year to year to year. She had to move several times. She's been there for close to 10 years, and has had to move.
That is not unusual. That is very typical example of what religious women have to put up with all over, and in the United States as well. Yeah, believe me, it's very true. It's sad too.
Do you find that there's what would you say as far as a solution to that?
Well, I think that the Holy Spirit will, I think that young women like yourself who are experiencing a call to ministry and to service, to build up, the kingdom and I hate that word kingdom, by the way. It's very male oriented, but it's the one we've used, and to spread the gospel and to empower people and especially care for the poor and those on the margins. Through all of that, it's kind of there's authority. That gospel passage where everybody's listening to the Lord in the temple, and they said, "Who is this man who speaks with authority?" They saw right in his own preaching and teaching, they sensed and felt an authenticity and a reality and an honesty that they didn't get from the scribes and the Pharisees, who were about, their own kingdom, so to speak. So it's kind of the same thing in the church today. When you have a priest or a religious, and since we're talking about women, I'll say religious women, lay women like yourself, who speak with authority because their hearts are committed to the Lord and to the people and the poor, it comes through. You can't walk away from it, because that's the Holy Spirit, and people feel it and sense it and see it, and they're very disappointed when they don't have it. My friend Virginia Dunn and I left this parish in Washington a year ago last October, and she passed away in December, right after Christmas. And I'm here this week planning a memorial celebration for her, which will take place in this parish next Saturday morning. And I cannot express the number of people who have reached out to her. This is when we were leaving, after we left, to just say, and I know they truly believed it. They say, the parish is just not the same. It's missing a certain ingredient, and I know exactly the ingredient it's missing.
Right.
And it's called compassion and outreach and not making judgments, availability, love, service, openness, freedom. Those are the characteristics of most any religious women that I know, anyway, and I know quite a few. And no one of us is perfect, but this is what we've given our life to becoming, and it's all about the Lord and the gifts of the Spirit, and we don't do it ourselves. We all know that anything we have is a gift, but when you focus on accepting those gifts and deepening those gifts and spreading and sharing those gifts and opening up those gifts to others, it makes a difference. It makes a huge difference. And even if you're only just 2 people in a huge 5,000 member parish, it is felt, it is noted, and people draw strength and consolation from it. And I believe that is true also for authentic lay women. And I've worked with both types. I've worked with lay women who are really about control, and it's known by the people, and it is rejected by the people, but often it's embraced by the clergy because that's what they want. They don't want women who are loving and compassionate and servants. They want women who are going to get in there and get all the work done so they don't have to do it, or so that things run the way they want them, or other kinds of reasons. And it's fine. It gets the job done, but it doesn't transform. It doesn't necessarily lead to the kind of conversion I think the Lord is looking for in all of us. So that's my take on that.
That's so spot on, and I'm very sorry to hear about the loss of your friend Virginia.
Yeah.
And
well, your mother-in-law knew her. She I think was acquainted. I'm pretty sure she knew Virginia, but She would have met her when we would have seen each other in Florida or wherever. She would have met Virginia. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm saddened to hear of her loss, and I can only imagine that the parish that you guys were at together really does feel the loss since you've left. I'm a convert, and I remember early on when I was really starting to dig into the Catholic faith and learn about it, and I just really fell in love with the faith. I mentioned to Mike, I said, one thing that's so missing from many Catholic parishes that we've been to, because we've lived all over the world, I said, is a certain warmth. And I said, I think it's almost like, there's not a pastor's wife like you would have in a Protestant church.
Right.
And that feminine element is really often lacking in so many places. And I think you describe it really well, that there is something that that the feminine genius, so to speak, brings to any parish life.
Right. And I'd add that young women like yourself, and you will find other women when you finish your degree and you become engaged in a parish community. You will find that the Lord will lead you to other women with similar values that you have. And you'll have more education and will be able to lead. But this is something to search out and to begin to reach out to and nourish and strengthen, because that becomes like a heartbeat in a community. It becomes like a heartbeat, and it pumps blood and oxygen and joy and faith into that body, into that community. So, that is something that's out there that you will be challenged to create.
Well, please pray for me. Thank you. I appreciate that encouragement, and I really do feel sort of empowered and definitely enlightened by this conversation, because it kind of hits my heart, right, kind of where I've thought about the role of women in the Catholic Church, which is a difficult thing to kind of figure out, especially as
and some
generation.
People say, they just write it off and say, oh, the nuns want to be priests. And I can't tell you one single nun that I know who would want to be a Roman Catholic priest. Right. I can, maybe 40 years ago, right after Vatican II, when the church was changing dramatically, but a stop was put to everything in that Vatican II energy that would have transformed the total church and made the church ready to accept ordained women. But that's gone. And I honestly can tell you, I don't know of a single religious woman that would seek that, because they would literally die in that environment.
That is fascinating. So I am grateful for all the women religious that have given their lives, and certainly for the prophetic role that they play in the church. Without it, I think we would be really, sicker than it is.
And your friend at the Angelicum is a perfect example. And, she could say, they don't even give me housing, I'm out of here. But no, her vision is to empower and educate and to lead women and young men to a closer, deeper relationship with their faith and with their Lord. And, whether she does housing or not, that's not going to stop her from being and doing what God has called her to do. So, she's a good model for you thinking about that.
Well, thank you. Well, we will all pray for each other then as we
Amen.
go forward.
So when do you finish your classes?
Well, this class is only a couple more weeks long, and then I'm planning to write a master's thesis, which is
that's not easy,
hanging over my head, and I'm trying to kind of finalize how I want it to go. So hopefully by this summer I'll be finished.
So where are you? Where are you studying? What is your place of where you'll get your degree?
It is Catholic Distance University. It's all online.
It's online, and is it come through Catholic University or a local Catholic school or university?
It does not. It's actually its own entity. It was originally a kind of a catechetical training program that has been developed into a full undergraduate and graduate degree program online.
Oh, wow. So it must be credentialed through the state of South Carolina, or what?
It's credentialed, and it's approved by the USCCB. So
okay, all right,
yeah,
okay, yeah.
It's fully,
so that's where you get your imprimatur and all your supervision, and yeah.
Exactly.
Well, that Bishop Barron, he's quite popular now. His work with young adults. I know our young adult minister at Annunciation did all of his tapes with the young people, and they really thoroughly enjoyed them.
Yeah, I like him. I listen to him frequently. He's really articulate. And he is not afraid of tackling, difficult issues in the church at all.
Exactly. Because he's got the spiritual grounding and vision to be able to.
Yeah, he's fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, I would love to sit and chat with you more, but I don't want to hold you up. I know you're there with friends, so
Yeah, and thank you. It was great talking to you, and next time you talk to my beloved friend, Michelle, give her my best love. We've been friends for over 50 years.
That's awesome.
And she is a prophetic, deeply spiritual woman herself.
She is.
She is one of those of whom I speak. Let me put it that way.
She is a blessing in my life. So I will pass on your love to her. And thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome, and I hope it's been helpful.
Very much so. Thank you so much.
Okay, dear. God bless. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.